Let's talk about switches. By the time we're done here, we will examine the common personas of a Cisco switch model that you can use in a physical lab environment. Do you know what a persona is? In larger companies, they'll start to create these imaginary representations of people that they would sell to, because companies can't sell all things to all people. So they'll say, that's Harvey. Harvey likes cold walks on the beach at night and likes, like they identify this whole personality of the person that buys from them. And that's kind of what I'm after in this nugget, is to describe the personalities, the personas, if you will, of switches that you can put into your physical lab environment. Now, once again, a reminder, the switch is like the electrical junction box of the network world. This ties together all the electric cables and ensures that you have power flowing through your house or your business. This ties together all the network cables that link all the devices, whether it be computers or wireless access points or servers or video cameras or anything else that you want to tie to the network. It all comes to the switch, which is an intelligent device. It works at layer 2 of the OSI model, which means it will learn the MAC address of each one of those devices, add it to its own little table, and then remember how to get between them. So that way, when the video camera wants to talk to the computer, the switch can make that connection dynamically between them and not bother the other devices on the network. That's the big difference between the switch and the hub. And now let's talk about the personas. These are three, actually more than that. These are multiple different categories of Catalyst switch. So first off, Catalyst, where did that come from? Cisco bought that company long ago. Cisco created the router. That's their claim to fame. But they bought their switch line by acquiring a company called Catalyst. As a matter of fact, they came over and brought the Cat OS with them. Many of you know that Cisco's software, I can't talk and write at the same time, okay? Cat OS, there we go. Cisco's software is known as the iOS. And for a long time, they had two different flavors of operating system. Long ago, they phased this one out and migrated all the switches that ran CatOS to run the iOS. So they have the same look and feel and configuration style as their router. So up top is the first persona, the Catalyst 2960 and 2975. Now, remember, these are specific model numbers. I'm not saying buy those numbers. It's kind of like saying a Ferrari and a Porsche are a type of sports car, right? There's a lot of other sports cars that are out there. And these are two types of layer 2 stackable switches. Now, stack can be such a confusing term, and I'm going to talk about two ways that can be used. First off, I'm on a slant here. Take a look at this. This is my Arizona network, and I've got 3 different stackable switches in a row. Stack in that sense means it's a single unit. It's independent of the others. It's typically 1U in size. That is, when you have a network rack, a typical size network rack is 42U. So this will consume one of those units, right? And you can stack them up in there. So a stackable switch is managed by itself and so on and so forth, right? So that's the way that I'm using. When you see layer 2 stack, that's how I'm using that word. But there's another way to use it. As a matter of fact, let's head back over here. If you look at this Catalyst 3750, that's these silver guys right here. These are equipped with the technology known as Stackwise. I knocked over my cactus. These are equipped with the technology known as Stackwise. And if I could flip it around, as a matter of fact, this is the switch that you're looking at right here. If you could flip that around, in the back, there's a place where you can put a cable that Cisco calls their Stackwise cable. That combines multiple switches into a single brain. Right? Normally, if you're talking about stackable switches, you're talking about I manage that one individually and that one and that one. Stackwise allows you to combine them and manage them all as a single unit. So in this case, when you see layer 2 stack, that means it's a stackable switch. I'm not talking about the Stackwise technology, but this persona of switch is just a switch. It does layer 2 stuff, just like I said, learns MAC addresses, right? Look down one level, you get into the Catalyst 3560 and 3750. Those are layer 3 stackable switches. Now again, I'm back on the OSI model. Layer 1 is physical, layer 2 is data link layer, layer 3 is network. This lives and operates at the network layer, which means it does routing. So that brings up the question, What's the difference between a layer 3 switch and a router? Actually, a lot. A layer 3 switch is where it does routing in the hardware. Here's the magic sauce of a switch. They've created special chips that go inside of there called ASICs, application-specific integrated circuitry. What that does is allow it to see stuff like MAC addresses and operate on it and take action on it just as fast as the cable can transmit. So the ASICs allow the switch to work as fast as that cable can send data. It's as if the switch wasn't there. And it can do that same thing for routing. So a layer 3 switch can route just as fast as the cable can send. But there's an exception. You can only do so much in hardware before you reach how much intelligence you can pack into a chip. And that's where the router comes in. Routers are software-based, which means they have a bajillion features. They can do all kinds of stuff, but they're never going to be as fast as you could be if you could do it in a hardware. So there's your trade-off. Layer 3 switch, typically less features, but way faster than a router that has way more features, but it runs a little slow. Back on the personas, Catalyst 3560, 3750 represent a layer 3 stackable switch. And the last one, as we're talking about home labs, I want to make sure that you don't fall into this category. The Catalyst 4500 and 6500 represents what's known as a chassis-based switch. Look at that beast. So imagine your spouse when you power that thing on at night and she's trying to sleep or he's trying to sleep and you just hear, it's a jet engine, literally a jet engine taking off in your lab environment. You don't want that, even though nowadays you can get these pretty cheap if you're shopping on eBay. A chassis-based switch in itself is just a shell. It's a metal box that you slide your blades into. Notice up here are the power supplies that allow it to receive, one or two different power sources. So if one goes down, the other can take over. In the middle of this switch is what's known as the supervisor engines. So SUP. That's what gives the switch intelligence. And the beauty of a chassis-based switch is you can actually swap those out and you literally, it's like doing a brain transplant on the switch. You can upgrade the whole switch because the chassis is just a metal box. You have the backplane, which ties all these things together, but the real glamour and speed and processor and everything else comes in those supervisor engines. And you can put in whatever blades you want to add functionality. So that's it. That's the common personas of Cisco switch models that you can use in a physical lab environment. Later on, when we get into building the lab environment, I'm going to show you exactly which ones I would recommend and where you would put them. But for now, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.